Aloha, Michelle with Blossom Inner Wellness. I'm here with my friend Rick.
Aloha.
And we've been talking about what's happening in the Ukraine. I'm going to say it kind of stealthy because we're going to be talking about some truth here that everybody should be understanding and knowing. And what I love about my friend Rick here over on the other side of the island, he's visiting me today. He just has been studying a lot about the history and what has been going down and on with the powers that be. So Rick was talking about what was happening in 2014 in Ukraine. And so Rick, I'm just gonna, and from now on we're just gonna call it RAIN instead of
Rain.
so RAIN.
A certain northeastern European country.
So what were you saying about 2014?
Well,
from
in
there.
2014, which was the Obama administration, they and this was Victoria Nuland, by the way. You can look her up and what she's up. What Victoria Nuland and what she's up to now. But anyway, you go all the way back to 2014, Obama administration, which would include Joe Biden as vice president.
And watch out for the names. We'll
Oh,
say
yeah,
B, Mr. B.
Yeah, Mr. B, whatever the big man. All that. Anyway, 2014, there was a coup in this northeastern European country, RAIN, to put in a government that was going to be more Western European friendly, right? That's what they wanted, not something that sided with Russia. Though the eastern half of it, the Donbass area, was considered Russian. And Russian speaking, and people who identified as Russians, and it was always considered a Russian area. But Ukraine, not wanting to lose that RAIN.
Go ahead.
Who knows if this will get rubbed or not. RAIN, not wanting to lose that area, started shelling their own people. They went to war. So this war that we're experiencing now really started in 2014. And many of the people living in RAIN have been dealing with warfare at their doorsteps since 2014 under the Obama administration, when they put in the current leader and they started this war to free the Donbass area. And then now it continues, and that's probably where the majority of shelling and other activity goes.
So you have to understand one thing, is that the president of RAIN was put in.
Yeah, he was placed.
By the powers that be here in the Western world,
and as
Western country that we live in.
You can say this is a conspiracy theory, but I don't think it is, because I think it's been proven to be a fact. There are biomedical laboratories.
Can you see us okay?
There were something like 34 biomedical laboratories. Again, Victoria Nuland sort of admitted to all of this, operating in Ukraine, and some of those biomedical laboratories were working on some very interesting things that, having gone through what we just went through and all this stuff, kind of related to all of that. So
related to the V.
Yeah, the big V. Anyway, that all being said, Putin, I'm sure, was telling them, look, don't bring NATO to my doorstep.
He was telling them from a long time, telling the Western country that we live in,
right,
don't bring NATO. And who is NATO?
NATO is the Northern Alliance of something trade organization, Northern Alliance trade organization. Anyway, it's all the Northern European countries and Western European countries. The whole idea was to be united against Russia, right? And so anyway, NATO now barking at his door. He invades Ukraine, effectively RAIN, trying to take back the Donbass, which had always really sort of belonged to the Russians, which they sort of lost through the 2014 coup. So now with this war that goes on, and it appears as though it's just they've moved the theater from an ideological war against terrorism. We didn't kill all the terrorists, and we didn't win the war against terrorism because we didn't change the ideology. We actually went over there and left $80 billion worth of weapons so they could continue fighting amongst themselves and doing what they do, and there's a whole long story about why we were in Afghanistan, having nothing to do with terrorism.
Nothing
to do with it.
It has to do with drugs?
Yeah, mostly the opium trade. That's a huge thing for Western pharmaceuticals. And the Taliban being so anti-opium, they burned all the opium fields, and we went back in there to replant the opium and guard basically opium. And then there's
opium,
Regarding
card
opium,
drugs
for Western, right,
for
for Western pharmacy.
the pharma company.
And so that's one of our purposes, one of the larger purposes there. And then the other purposes, of course, was to extract mineral resources. And those mineral resources that they're using in the green batteries now.
The green batteries.
All this stuff.
The green batteries for the electric cars, which actually go, those cobalt and different minerals
cobalt.
for these batteries are so toxic. People die, and children, about 40,000 children a year, are used to create this. It's child labor to create these green cars.
Yeah, that's definitely what's kind of going on. When every industry has its slaves, its servants, or whatever. But this is really a horrible thing because there's so many of these toxic minerals, and they dig these giant pits in the ground, and they're employing children in third world countries to extract these minerals because it's extremely toxic, like Michelle was saying, and these people have short lives. You couldn't do that in America. We have
Child labor laws.
Child labor laws, and we have environmental laws, and we have all these other laws that get in the way of that kind of exploitation. And that we can mine here, but it's governed. They have to monitor how the mining happens. So anyway, that's one of the reasons they can make things as cheap as they can, is because they're extracting these minerals from third world countries, at a fraction of the price. There's a fabulous book, I think it's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh yeah.
It was popular 20 years ago.
Heard of it.
And it's a fabulous book to read about how the IMF, the World Bank, will loan a country for development purposes way more money than they need, which is very, attractive to the people in government because they see themselves becoming overnight millionaires. And okay, that's all fine, but the payment on it is that, they end up basically usurping the resources of that country. They take over their stock market
dry.
and they suck them dry. They get everything cheap, and so that's one of the ways that we have this sort of aggressive stock market, these aggressive corporate, I don't know what's going on with these people.
Keep going. You gotta get my
Anyway,
alarm.
so this appears to be what's going on. The war that we're experiencing right now, that we're sending money to, that I'm sure we're sending people to train people, we're sending all kinds of stuff out there for,
Yeah.
that we're sending all of this stuff over there. That, in part, is this change in theater of an ideological war. Part of it is this continued war on the regime change, right? Because if you look back all the way back to the beginning of the experience and what happened after that, that's what's the important part. And all the things that happened after that, you see they've been involved in regime change. They want to change the governments of the Western world and the Eastern world to be more complacent with American business interests.
And I just want to say one thing about the two towers that that were taken down, that he just said the number 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
What happened with that, the day before that happened, Rumsfeld was going, oh my gosh, we're missing $23 billion out of the, I can't remember if there's a treasury or where it was, but then the very next day, happened, okay?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It's really interesting and how that went down. And there's other things I can say about that, but that's not the topic for right now. But I just wanted to throw that in there. Anything else you want to say? This is so I so appreciate you and coming over and.
Sure.
And,
well, it seems like the common man always gets stuck in the middle paying for this stuff. We either pay for it by sending our kids off to war or ourselves. We pay for it through our taxes. The wealthy, they don't send their kids to war. They get college educations and become the rulers again. It's a constant kind of issue. So, kind of you need to pull back and imagine you're the detective and you're looking at this crime, and it's like, well, what's the first thing you learn is follow the money. Follow the money. And I say to you the same thing. Look at where they put their money, where their priorities are at, and you realize they don't represent the people. They're not fixing our bridges. They're not fixing our plumbing. They're not bringing, real energy to us, right? To abandon petroleum, which is really one of the best energy sources we've ever had, to abandon it altogether for green energy is unwise. You know, I agree that we need to use it in a more moderate way, but I don't think that we need to abandon it altogether.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to say about that is I was watching Greg Braden, who was talking about that there was a carburetor that had regular cars in the 1950s. Regular cars would get 90 miles per the gallon.
Yeah, and they shut that thing down.
In the 50s, there was this carburetor that had this patent. Guess who bought the patent? You'll never guess. You probably will.
Ford, probably.
The oil company.
Yeah. Oh, the oil company.
They bought it and they stuck it in the freaking closet.
Put it in the freezer in the back.
Because why? Because they were going to be out of money, out of business. Like, this carburetor was amazing in the 50s.
Yeah.
So we have so much technology that's out there that that's soon to be coming out, because the world is going to be changing. It's going to be becoming a better place. We just got to hold on for this roller coaster ride and start seeing. You know, I have friends who are very positive people who I love to death, but sometimes they don't want to look at the negative. And I said, we have to see it. We have to see what truly our world has been and what is happening to our people. It matters. Then the most amazing thing is those of us in this Western country, it's really important for us to stand up, because we're the ones who can stand up. We're the ones who can say no more to this. You know, a lot stronger than some of the other countries, and some of the other countries are doing way better, in my opinion, than the Western countries like India. Do you know there was a huge protest for like 60 days where the Indians, my friend here who's Indian, where the Indians actually were protesting against, they were trying to make all the farmers plant GMOs, and they were doing a lot of different, passing different laws about the farmers, really boxing them in. And so millions of people took to the streets, and what happened was some farmers would go to their land, get food, come back, feed the people, while other farmers went back to theirs. So it was like a rotation. No money. They didn't have any money, but we didn't see any of this. And he was trying to post this, and he kept getting censored. It kept getting taken down. But this was what was happening in India. So other countries are standing up, and it's time for us to say, okay, no more, no more. And that's what's happening, right? We have some good news. What's some of the good news?
Well, there's the earth itself is ever abundant and always,
so much abundant,
bringing forth stuff. And it's funny, I've been listening to some people recently, and I this is a real shocker for some of us, but the whole idea of overpopulation is a myth. It's an absolute myth. We could pack, apparently, all of the people in the world into basically Texas and Florida, something the size of Texas and Florida put together again, and there'd be room enough for everybody to live, and the rest of the planet would literally be vacant. I mean, there's just not that many of us on the planet already. And according to some sources, they say our fertility rates have gone down. So we're not replenishing our numbers.
Yep.
So we're kind of headed for extinction. It's kind of a mass extinction event. And I think it's brought on personally by Big Pharma and our lifestyles.
Yeah.
You know?
And the one thing I want to say about that is all of the transgender, and God may not have made, like telling children that God may not have had made the right decision.
God made a mistake. Yeah.
He may have made the wrong decision of making you a boy or a girl. What is that about? You know what that's about?
That's crazy.
It's about depopulation, because if somebody changes their sex, they can't have children.
There's that for sure, and about weakening America for an eventual takeover. You know, a weak America, right, is divided. It's divided.
Country.
They've been trying to divide the nuclear family and attacking men and women in their relationships, and strong men, they go after them and try to defeat them and get them, and women, we over-sexualize the women in our society so that they end up feeling traumatized all their lives, and they never really, learn their power, and so on and so forth. There's just like all these issues that continue to pop up because it's an orchestrated plan. It's social engineering, and you either choose to play along with it or not. It's up to you. It's like, if you want to be empowered, you're going to have to make up your own mind.
You have to make up your mind. You got to make a choice. And that's one thing that I always like to say that this is a movie we came to play, okay? And it's a movie for our spirit, for our soul, because nobody gets out of here alive. Maybe 100 years if you're lucky. Most of us will die before that, and that's fine. But who are you while you are here? Did you make a decision that stood up for your freedoms and your constitutional rights and honor those millions of men and women who have died for our freedoms? Did you do that? Did you, I know that I have struggled with anger. Be here now. Thank you for being
here
Thank
now.
you for being here now. So thank you if you're watching this. Thank you so much for saying, I'm going to come to the world at this time in history.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do the best I can. And that's all any of us can do. And then we leave the rest to source. One person said, Michelle, be an activist, but let go of your attachment to the outcome. Do the best you can,
Yes.
and let go of your attachment to the outcome, and trust in that
Exactly.
higher power.
Yeah.
And I know that we probably should have sat over there because the sun's in our back,
That's so good.
but you guys get the message. So sending you guys much aloha, much love. And yes, I just want to show you guys how abundant this world is. So behind me is this amazing banana tree. Okay, there was one tree here, one. And she's got so many babies that keep popping up, this banana tree back right behind us. And that's how abundant this world is. You get one of these one pieces of fruit, and what happens? You have so many seeds. I had one squash, beautiful squash, pumpkin squash, and there was so many seeds, and I planted each one, and each one made another squash.
With so many seeds.
This earth is so
exponential.
abundant. We're not supposed to live in scarcity and fear like this.
Exactly.
This is programmed in us.
Yeah.
We have so much abundance that is our birthright. So I think we're shadowing out here because the sun's right behind us. But sending you guys so much love, so much aloha. Keep the faith. Do what is your kuleana, what is yours to do. And let go of the outcome and find love and peace and balance in your day. And hang out with good friends. And give lots of hugs, okay? I love you guys.